Welcome back to the channel. I'm the Mechanic on Rogue. Today's video is another entry in my ongoing aluminum air battery series and is a direct follow-up to my last two videos where I focused more heavily on cathode design and performance. The biggest challenges so far have been material selection and the limitations of the tools I'm using. To work around these constraints, I've developed a custom cathode fabrication process where I dissolve plastics in solvents, mix in active battery materials to form a slurry, and then use a panini press to heat and compress it into a solid cathode around a stainless steel mesh current collector. If you want a deeper dive into that process, I'll link the earlier videos in the description. For this video, the goal is to test several material and process upgrades. I'm first going to try to replace my activated charcoal with this graphite powder. Then I'm actually going to try to remove the Styrofoam and Toluene completely from the mixture. And then I'm going to try to replace this stainless steel mesh current collector with something that's a little bit more corrosion resistant. While I'm doing that, I will also introduce a couple of process changes along the way. As you can see, we got a lot to dig into, so let's get started. Starting with graphite. A few years ago, I spent a lot of time experimenting with solid graphite sheets as a cathode material, but I eventually moved away from them due to their cost and poor long-term durability. This time, I'm using graphite powder instead, which is easier to source and fits much more naturally into my existing cathode fabrication process. Before testing anything, I wanted to take things a step further by chemically treating the graphite powder with potassium permanganate. The goal here is for potassium permanganate to react with the graphite and deposit manganese dioxide nanoparticles on its surface. Manganese dioxide is a known catalyst in aluminum air batteries, and it's something I experimented with previously when I was working with graphite sheets. One limitation with the sheets was that the reaction didn't distribute evenly across the surface, so using graphite powder should allow for a more uniform coating. To do this, I weighed out 30 grams of graphite powder and mixed in 1 gram of potassium permanganate. Adding water until a slurry formed, I heated the mixture on a hot plate with a magnetic stirrer, brought it to a boil, and continued heating until all the water had evaporated. As the mixture dried, the graphite clumped together, so once it cooled, I ran it through an old coffee grinder to break it back down into a usable powder. With the treated graphite ready, I made several different cathode samples. I started with an activated charcoal control, then created samples for both untreated and treated graphite in two ratios, a 50-50 mix with charcoal and a 100% graphite mix. Each sample was tested in two electrolytes, a 3.5 molar saltwater solution and a 1.5 molar potassium hydroxide solution. And during testing, I measured voltage, unloaded current, and current under load using a 10 ohm resistor. Rather than walking through every individual test, I've summarized the results in this chart, and we'll focus on a few key takeaways. Every graphite-based cathode outperformed the activated charcoal control, which shows that switching to graphite is a meaningful improvement. The difference between treated and untreated graphite is less clear. With untreated graphite, the 50-50 mix performed best, while with treated graphite, the 100% graphite sample produced better results. These measurements don't directly show the physical quality of the cathodes themselves, or how the viscosity of the cathode slurry affects application during production. I found that the 100% graphite samples were significantly more brittle and porous, which may have influenced the results by reducing material density or allowing the electrolyte to penetrate too deeply into the cathode. Through further optimization, I eventually found that a ratio of roughly 2 grams graphite to 1 gram of charcoal provided the best balance between cathode strength, slurry viscosity, and overall manufacturability, while still maintaining the performance improvements from the graphite. To confirm these results at a larger scale, I ran a follow-up test using two cathodes, an activated charcoal control and a 50-50 cathode made with treated graphite. I chose treated graphite here because it showed a small but consistent advantage in the earlier tests. Repeating the measurements made the improvement very clear. Graphite provides a substantial increase in cathode performance. In the potassium hydroxide electrolyte in particular, performance under load increased by just over 35%, while unloaded current increased by more than 200%. Next up, let's try removing this styrofoam and toluene. This change was actually caused by a mixture of viewer feedback as well as practicality. I received several comments questioning whether or not the styrofoam and toluene might negatively affect the cathode performance. In addition, I don't like working with toluene to begin with because of the strong fumes associated with it. So naturally, I tried looking into ways to eliminate it entirely. To understand how to remove it, I first considered why I was using it in the first place. Toluene was originally added because it dissolves styrofoam easily into the cathode slurry, while the styrofoam itself was added to reduce the brittleness of the ABS plastic. Rather than trying to replace the styrofoam directly, I decided the better approach was to look for alternative ways to improve the flexibility of the ABS plastic itself. After some research, I decided to experiment with castor oil as a plasticizer because it's inexpensive, readily available, and already used as a plasticizer in other plastics. To test the idea, I created 2 ABS and castor oil samples with different ratios and allowed them to cure for 48 hours alongside a control sample. The results were encouraging. While excess oil on some samples suggested there was a practical limit to how much could be absorbed, the castor oil samples were noticeably softer and more flexible than the control material, confirming that castor oil could indeed act as a plasticizer for ABS. At the same time, I was also introducing 2 process changes to improve cathode production. One issue with the previous method was that the slurry would spread out during pressing, creating a fair amount of mess and waste. To help contain this, I built a mold from angle iron and started wrapping the slurry in parchment paper before pressing it. This produced much cleaner cathodes with a more consistent shape. With these 2 changes in place, I moved on to building a new cathode using the optimized 2:1 graphite to charcoal ratio from the earlier tests. Instead of styrofoam and toluene, this version used castor oil at a ratio of 2 grams of oil for every 5 grams of ABS juice, along with some additional acetone to improve mixing. The finished cathode immediately showed a major improvement in flexibility, with far less cracking and chipping than previous designs. Electrically, the results were promising, but still somewhat mixed. Using a 1 molar potassium hydroxide electrolyte, the cathode produced about 155 milliamps unloaded and roughly 55 milliamps under a 10 ohm load. While still functional, performance was lower than the earlier graphite cathodes and closer to the activated charcoal control samples. One thing I did notice was that this cathode turned out quite thin, which allowed electrolyte to soak through the material during testing. I suspect both the reduced thickness and electrolyte penetration were major factors affecting performance. Now, I did want to make a second cathode using castor oil, but before we get to that, let's move on to the final material change that I want to make, and that is the current collector. One issue I've consistently run into is the presence of voids within the cathode structure, likely caused by solvents vaporizing during the pressing process. While these voids usually don't extend completely through the cathode, they often expose portions of the stainless steel mesh to the electrolyte, leading to visible corrosion in as little as 24 hours. I started this part of the project experimenting by replacing the mesh entirely using hard drive platters. While the platters themselves proved highly corrosion resistant, they had very poor adhesion with the cathode material. Modifying or drilling the platters helped somewhat, but exposed their aluminum core and brought the corrosion issue right back again. That experiment did help point me in a new direction though. Rather than replacing the current collector entirely, I started looking into whether I could simply coat it with a more corrosion resistant material. Since nickel is commonly used as a current collector in industrial aluminum air batteries, I decided to experiment with nickel electroplating. If you remember from my first aluminum air battery video, I originally used copper mesh, which I still have plenty of. Nickel electroplating copper is a well-documented process. So I ordered some nickel, produced nickel acetate using vinegar, and got to work plating the mesh. The results were excellent. After a couple hours of electroplating at 3 volts, the plated mesh developed a dull gray nickel coating, and initial testing immediately showed a major improvement in corrosion resistance. I ran a 24-hour submersion test comparing untreated copper mesh against the nickel-plated mesh in a 1 mole potassium hydroxide solution. Within 24 hours, the untreated copper mesh had turned black and contaminated the solution blue. Well, the nickel-plated mesh showed no visible change. To confirm the results, I repeated the test using only the plated mesh in fresh electrolyte, and again saw no visible corrosion after 24 hours. At this point, I was confident that I had successfully created a corrosion-resistant current collector. Now that I have that new and improved current collector, I'm going to use it to make that second cathode using castor oil. I also made sure to increase the cathode thickness this time around. Testing with a 1 molar potassium hydroxide electrolyte showed that the performance had returned to the same levels as the earlier graphite cathodes, while now also benefiting from improved flexibility, durability, and corrosion resistance. Dead short current reached 295 milliamps, while a 10 ohm load drew 88 milliamps. So overall, I would call this round of changes a success. The graphite cathodes clearly outperforms the original activated charcoal design. The castor oil successfully replaced the styrofoam, as well as dramatically increasing the flexibility, and the nickel-plated copper mesh takes care of the corrosion issues. There are still areas that need refinement, sure, but compared to where this project started, these cathodes are now significantly more durable, the manufacturing process is much more easy to repeat, as well as the performance is that much better as well. If you got ideas, suggestions, or questions, leave them in the comments sections below. As always, your continued support is very much appreciated. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching. MGR signing out.